Welcome to the Scotland house. There are some houses that do not want to be lived in. Houses that sit quietly on the edge of towns, waiting, watching, listening. Places where the walls seem to breathe, and the air feels too cold even on warm days. Places that change the people who enter them. Not with violence at first, no, but slowly, patiently. Like a predator that knows it has already won. This is the story of one such house. A house in the small coastal town of Oban, Scotland. A house that promised a future, but instead delivered a nightmare. The kind of nightmare that does not end when the lights come on. The kind that follows you into your sleep. The kind that touches you back. Ross and Natasha thought they were buying a home. But what they found was something else entirely. Something old, something aware, something hungry. And once they entered, it made only one thing clear. They moved to Oban for peace. A slower life, a chance to breathe. The kind of dreams young couples whisper to one another in the soft blue glow of early morning. A future, a family, a place to belong. The house they chose was modest. For bedrooms, neutral colors, a quiet street that overlooked the harbor. It didn't stand out. It didn't need to. The couple didn't want extravagance. They wanted comfort. And on the day they moved in, with boxes stacked by the stairwell and the sound of gulls calling from the shore, it felt perfect. Natasha remembers walking through the hallway and thinking, this is where our life begins. But the house had been waiting much longer than that, and it had been waiting for them. The first night was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that feels heavy, as though the house were holding its breath, watching. Ross brushed it off. He was logical, calm, reasonable, a man who didn't believe in ghosts, spirits, or anything that couldn't be held in his own two hands. Natasha didn't either, at least not then. But there is a difference between not believing and not yet having reason to believe. And reason was coming. The first sound came 2 days later. They were in the living room, unpacking dishes, when a heavy thud echoed from upstairs. Not the kind of sound a house makes when it settles. Not a creak. Not a shift. It sounded deliberate, like someone had dropped something, or stepped, or fallen. Ross looked up at the ceiling, frowned, then climbed the stairs. Nothing. Every room empty. Every window closed. He laughed, made a joke about old houses and wooden frames. But Natasha didn't laugh, because when Ross walked past her to head back downstairs, she saw something. A shadow, not cast from him, not cast from the window. A shadow that moved the opposite direction and disappeared. She didn't say anything. She didn't want to sound crazy. Not yet. The bruises came next. At first, they were small, just faint blue marks that Natasha noticed on her arms when she got out of the shower. She shrugged them off. Maybe she bumped something while carrying boxes. Maybe she slept wrong. But then they appeared on Ross as well. Dark, circular, finger-shaped, as though someone had grabbed him. He couldn't explain them. She couldn't explain hers. And bruises don't just appear where hands should be, unless something was touching them. Nights became strange. Natasha began waking up gasping, her chest tight, as though hands had been pressing her down. No sound, no movement, just weight, a weight that felt alive. Ross would shake her awake, and she'd tell him she was fine. But she wasn't, because the dreams were becoming clearer. Dreams of fire, dreams of a room burning, walls melting, the smell of smoke thick and bitter in her nose. In those dreams, she was not just watching, she was inside the fire. And she was not alone. Something stood in the flames with her, watching, waiting, Its presence was cold, even in the blaze. And every time she woke up, she swore she could still smell smoke. But the house was silent, and the air was cold, freezing. Then came the smoke alarms. First one, then another, then all of them at once. Shrieking, screaming, echoing through the house. Ross ran room to room, searching for fire. There was none. No smoke, no heat, just the alarms, blasting in perfect unison. When he removed the batteries, they kept going. Even the alarms that were not wired to one another. Even the alarms with no power source inside them. It was as though something wanted to be heard. Something wanted them awake. Something wanted attention. And then the house began to feel different. Not just eerie. Not just uncomfortable. The air felt thicker, harder to breathe. Shadows seemed to linger longer in corners. Rooms felt darker even with lights on. Natasha stopped going upstairs alone. Ross didn't say it out loud, but he avoided it too, because there was one room in particular that felt wrong. A room both of them instinctively avoided. The door was always cold to the touch, even on warm days. Even when the rest of the house felt normal, they started calling it. They stopped sleeping together. Not because they were upset with one another, but because one of them always needed to be awake. Just in case. Just in case the footsteps returned. Just in case the alarm started again. Just in case something entered the room. They didn't talk about it. Not at first. But they both knew. Something that didn't want them there. Something that didn't want them safe. Something that didn't want them to stay. As days passed, the house began to feel more alive than ever, as though it were studying them. Natasha noticed how the shadows in the hallway seemed to stretch when she walked past, reaching out, narrowing, tightening around her. She started keeping lights on in every room, but light did not chase away what was there. It only made it easier to see the places where light did not reach, and those corners felt occupied. Ross tried to rationalize everything. He searched the internet late into the night, reading about mold, carbon monoxide, foundation shifts, stress, sleep paralysis. He clung to science because the alternative was far too terrifying. But science cannot explain when footsteps walk across your landing while you are staring at the stairs. Science cannot explain when the bedroom door closes itself, slow enough that you could see every inch of movement. Science cannot explain when a whisper calls your name in a voice that is not real, not human, and not anything from this world. It was a whisper that broke everything. One night, Ross lay on the couch trying to fall asleep. Natasha was upstairs, finally resting after days of exhaustion. The house was quiet, still too still. The kind of stillness that feels like something is listening. And then, behind him, just inches from his ear, a voice. Not loud, not sharp, soft, breathless. Ross. He froze. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. He didn't blink. Because the voice wasn't Natasha's. It wasn't a voice he recognized. It sounded like someone standing directly behind him, leaning close enough that he could feel the warmth of a breath that wasn't there. But when he turned around, there was no one, just an empty room. And the cold. He didn't tell Natasha. He didn't want to frighten her more. But she knew, because the next morning, as she stood at the kitchen sink, she heard her own name whispered right behind her, and the voice was male. That was when Natasha began to avoid being alone. Her independence, the thing she was most proud of, the thing she built her life on, began to slip through her fingers. She found herself waiting by doors, checking corners, watching shadows. She began talking quieter, moving slower, as if afraid to draw too much attention, because she felt watched. Constantly. The house always felt like it had eyes, but now it felt like it had hands. One evening, Natasha was walking down the hallway when something grabbed her ankle. Not a brush, not a muscle twitch, not a misstep. It was a grip, firm, cold, human. She screamed, falling forward, scraping her hands on the hardwood. Ross came running, but there was nothing there. No explanation, only the bruise forming on her skin. They began to sleep with the bedroom door locked. But locks mean nothing to things that do not need to use doors. The dreams became more violent. Natasha dreamed of burning rooms again, but now she could see the figure in the flames more clearly. Tall, blackened, limbs too long, body hunched, head tilted as though studying her. No face, just emptiness, watching her burn, and every time she woke up, tears were already streaming down her face. Ross dreamed too, but his dreams were different. He saw a woman, thin, pale, eyes sunken, staring at him from the doorway of the room they avoided. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She only stood there, as if waiting for him to understand something he wasn't ready to see. They stopped going into that room entirely. The door stayed closed, always, but some nights they found it open, slowly, carefully swung wide, as though the house was inviting them in. Ross suggested calling someone, a medium, a priest, anyone. Natasha agreed without hesitation. They needed help. They needed answers. They needed to know what was living there with them. That was when the investigators arrived. Not the kind of ghost hunters you see on the internet, with flashing lights and jump scares. These were people who had seen things like this before. People who understood that some places were more than haunted. Some places were claimed. When they stepped into the house, they did not speak at first. The silence told them everything. It was heavy, suffocating, like the air itself was layered with something thick, something wrong. One of the investigators walked upstairs and immediately stopped outside the door of the room Ross and Natasha avoided. He didn't touch the doorknob. He simply stared at the wood for a long, unmoving moment. "There is something in there," he said quietly, "and it is aware of us." They set up equipment, recorders, sensors, motion devices, not to provoke, just to observe, to listen. The house did not want them there. During the first night of the investigation, one of them felt something press into the back of his leg. Not lightly, not accidentally, hard. When he lifted his pant leg, 3 drawing pins were stuck deep into his skin. The others watched them be removed. No explanation, no logical source. No one had touched him. Another investigator, while recording audio in the hallway, felt something grab her ankle beneath the bed. The same ankle Natasha had been grabbed by. She fell. She screamed. And when she was helped up, her ankle was already swelling. The house was not passive. It was not confused. It was not lost. It was angry. The investigators decided to try communication. They used a method meant to separate the conscious mind from influence. One person listens to a spirit radio signal with noise-canceling headphones and repeats every word or sound they hear, while another person asks questions in silence. It prevents the listener from knowing what is being asked. If responses match, it means something is answering. Natasha volunteered. She sat in a chair, eyes closed, headphones over her ears, static hissing softly. The others spoke questions into the air, and Natasha began to speak. At first the words were fragments. Cold, here, watch. Then the responses began to link. They began to answer. Who is in this house? The investigator asked. Mine, Natasha said, voice flat, tone empty. What do you want? Stay. A pause. Then a whisper. so soft the room seemed to lean in to hear it. Forever, the investigator swallowed. "Why are you hurting them?" The reply was instant. "Shush." It was not a command to be silent. It was a warning. The room felt colder. The lights flickered, and Natasha stopped breathing. Her chest did not move. Her face went still. The investigator ripped the headphones off and shook her. When she gasped, it sounded like someone who had been underwater far too long. She did not remember anything that she said. The investigators looked at Ross and Natasha with a truth neither of them wanted to hear. Whatever was in the house was not confused. It was not seeking help. It was not lost or trapped. It was territorial. It wanted ownership, and it had chosen them. The worst part was not the bruises, not the whispers, not the grabbing hands, the dreams, the alarms, the shadows. The worst part was the feeling that the house was waiting, as if everything so far had only been the beginning, and the real haunting had not yet started. After the night of the communication session, nothing in the house felt the same. It was as though acknowledging the presence had given it permission to step forward, to shed whatever veil had kept it partially hidden. Now, the house felt awake in every room, in every hallway, with every breath the couple took. The floorboards no longer creaked randomly. They creaked in rhythm, in steps, in patterns that matched the pace of someone walking. The temperature shifted not by chance, but when one of them entered a room, as though the house was reacting to their presence, adjusting itself to make them feel small. Natasha began losing time. She would wake up standing in rooms she did not remember walking into. Sometimes she'd be in the kitchen, staring at the stove, the flame burning low under an empty pan. Sometimes she'd be in the bathroom, lights off, her reflection just a pale shape in the mirror. The worst moment came when Ross found her standing at the top of a staircase, her body swaying forward slightly, like she was on the edge of falling. Her eyes were open, but she was not there. Her breathing was shallow. Her lips moved without sound. When he grabbed her arm, she didn't resist. She simply blinked slowly, as if waking from a deep, heavy sleep, and whispered, "It was calling me." Ross tried to stay strong, but the cracks were forming. He began to hear footsteps behind him that stopped when he turned. He saw shadows dart across the hallway, not in flickers, but in purposeful movements, like someone walking just out of sight. He started to hear humming in the late hours of the night, a voice that sounded like a woman's, singing a song with no melody, only breath and tone. A lullaby, but one sung not to comfort, but to lure. They considered leaving, packing their things, walking out, never coming back. But fear does strange things to the mind. It convinces you that what is happening is still manageable, that things could get better, that you can ignore the worst parts. And there was another reason they stayed. The house felt like it didn't want them to go. Every time they tried to talk about leaving, something would happen. A door would slam hard enough to rattle the picture frames. The lights would cut out. The temperature would drop to the point their breath fogged the air. Once, when Ross said, "We need to leave," the smoke alarm shrieked so violently that the ringing in their ears lasted for hours. The house didn't just want them there. It needed them. One night, as Ross lay awake, staring at the ceiling, he heard breathing. Not Natasha's. Something else. Heavy. Slow. Right next to him. He turned his head, expecting to see her there. But the bed beside him was empty. Natasha was standing in the doorway, her face pale, eyes wide, staring at him. And yet the breathing did not stop. He could feel it against his cheek. Hot, wet, close. He didn't move. He couldn't. The pressure of a presence he he could not see pushed down on his chest, pinning him. Natasha didn't scream. She didn't move. She whispered his name so softly it almost wasn't sound at all. And then the pressure vanished, leaving him gasping like he had been drowning. Natasha told him she had been woken by someone whispering in her ear, not calling her name this time, telling her to come upstairs, to open the door, the room they feared, the room they avoided, the room that was always cold. She had walked to the doorway in a daze, hand on the knob, ready to open it again, but something stopped her. She said it was not fear that held her back. It was the feeling that if she opened that door, she would not come back. The investigators returned. They brought historical records, maps, documents. They wanted to know who had lived there before, what had happened in that house, why the air felt thick with grief and fire and darkness. It did not take long to find it. The house had once belonged to a woman and her child, a single mother, isolated by the town, alone in her grief. Her husband had died at sea, lost to the cold black waters of the harbor. Her child, her last reason to stay alive, died in a fire. The fire started in the upstairs bedroom, the same room Ross and Natasha could not bear to enter. The mother had been unable to save him, and after the fire, she remained in the house, alone, silent, for years, until one night, she simply disappeared. No one saw her leave. No one saw her body. The house remained empty for a long time. But some absences are not empty at all. The investigators believed the spirit of the mother remained. But the thing in the flames from Natasha's dreams was not a mother. It was not grief. It was something else. Something that had come to the house after the tragedy. Something drawn to pain, loss, loneliness. A thing that did not comfort but consumed. When the investigators tried to enter the burned room to cleanse it, the door slammed shut so violently the walls shuddered. The air grew so cold frost formed along the doorknob. And there, behind the wood, they heard breathing. Slow, heavy, waiting. They tried again the next day. And this time, the house did not just resist. It fought. As they stepped into the room, every light in the house flickered and died, plunging them into blackness. Natasha screamed. Ross grabbed her and held her close. A voice, deep and warped, crawled through the dark. Stay. The investigators lit a single candle. The room flickered into view, and in the corner, pressed into the shadow, was a shape. Not a figure, not a solid form, just darkness so dense it had weight. It moved, not like a person, but like smoke and limbs all at once. It tilted its head the way Natasha described from her dreams. It had no face, and it was watching them. The investigators began the cleansing ritual, voices steady, words firm, calling for release, for separation, for the mother spirit to be freed and the house to be restored. The shadows shifted. The candle went out. Natasha felt something cold wrap around her wrist and pull. Hard. Her knees buckled, and she would have fallen if Ross hadn't caught her. Her voice broke in a sob, because she could feel fingers, nails, skin. The house was not asking. It was taking. The investigator shouted, finishing the cleansing words with force, commanding the spirit to release this place, release these people, release the memory of fire. The temperature snapped. The air cracked with a sound like wood splitting. The pressure lifted. The shadow receded like smoke being sucked through a doorway. The candle flickered back to life. The house went silent, completely silent. For the first time since they moved in, the house was still. Not watching, not breathing, not reaching. Still. But stillness is not always peace. Stillness can be what comes before the next part. And the next part was already beginning. Ross noticed it first. Natasha didn't look like herself anymore. Her reflection lingered in the mirror after she stepped away. She didn't remember conversations. She didn't react when he touched her shoulder. Sometimes she stared at the burned room door for minutes at a time. The house had let go, but something else had not. She was no longer alone in her own body, and the haunting had moved inside her. The following morning, the house felt eerily silent. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, but watchful. Claire moved through the rooms as sunlight filtered weakly through the curtains. Dust seemed to hang in the air, unmoving, as though the house refused to breathe. She made tea. The kettle hissed. A normal sound, a comforting sound. But as she poured hot water into the mug, she felt something behind her. A presence. Heavy, cold, not touching her, but leaning into her space. She turned slowly, expecting maybe Ethan had returned to check on her. But nothing was there. Nothing except the open doorway leading into the dark hallway, where the shadows seemed too thick, too deep. She steadied her breath. She tried to shake it off as sleep deprivation, stress, imagination. But when she sat down and lifted the mug to her lips, she froze. A handprint, wet, smudged, a large one, pressed clearly into the wood of the kitchen table. Too big to be hers, too large to be Ethan's, and it hadn't been there before. She stared at it, her heartbeat filling her ears like a drum. The fingers were long, too long. The palm stretched wider than any normal human hand. The mark dripped, not water, but dark moisture. Not quite black, but not quite red. Something old. Something that smelled faintly of earth and rot. She didn't touch it. She didn't have to. She knew, without knowing how, that the house was no longer content simply being seen. It wanted to be acknowledged. Claire grabbed her coat and left the house. She didn't even bother locking the door. She didn't care. Let the wind take it. Let the house rot. Let it fall. She didn't want it. She drove to Ethan's cottage, even though she wasn't sure she would be welcome. But when he opened the door and saw her, he didn't ask questions. He simply stepped aside and nodded. He already knew what the look on her face meant. They sat in silence for a long time, the old kettle clattering softly as it heated. When the tea was poured, Claire spoke, her voice low, thin, almost brittle. "Something is inside that house," she whispered. Ethan did not respond at first. He stared into his mug as though searching its surface for honesty. He finally said. "There always was." Claire felt a tremor roll up her arms. "You knew," she said, though it wasn't a question. Ethan gave a slow nod. "Everyone in town does." She stared at him, her voice cracking. "And you let me move in." Ethan swallowed. His jaw tightened. His eyes grew wet at the edges, though he did not cry. "I told you I couldn't make that choice for you." Claire shook her head, a mix of exhaustion and anger swarming beneath her ribs. What happened in that house? Ethan set his mug down, his expression hollow. "They say the family who used to live there, they didn't leave together. Not the way people said they did." Claire frowned. The story was that they moved overseas. Ethan shook his head. That was the story told to keep the children in the village from waking screaming in the night. Claire's breath hitched. So what actually happened? Ethan leaned back, his stare fixed on something far, far away. "They say the mother changed. Overnight. No warning. No sickness. No grief. Just changed. One morning, she woke up and said there was something in the walls, calling to her. The family tried to leave, pack their things, lock the doors, but the house wouldn't let them go." Claire felt the air around her go thin. Ethan continued. Some say she killed them. Some say they were taken. And some say they're still in there. Claire swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how cold her hands had become. Taken. Ethan nodded once. Not gone. Not dead. Just claimed. Claire's heart pounded harder now. Then what does it want with me? Ethan looked at her then. Really looked. And the fear in his eyes was not the kind born from superstition. It was the kind born from experience. The house chooses, he said quietly. And once it does not change its mind. Claire felt tears threaten to fall, but she forced them back. I can't go back there, she whispered. I won't. Ethan nodded. You shouldn't. But even as he said the words, they both knew something neither dared voice. The house would not accept being abandoned, and what chooses will always come to reclaim. That night, Claire stayed in the guest room of Ethan's cottage. She lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft wind outside. She almost fell asleep. Almost. Until she heard it. A soft creak. Not in the house. Not down the hall. Right beside her bed. The sound of a footstep. Slow. Deliberate. Closer. She didn't move. She didn't breathe. A cold exhale rolled across her cheek. And then a voice, rasped and dragging like damp earth being pushed through teeth, whispered her name. Claire. Claire's eyes snapped open though her body refused to move. It was as if something was pressing gently against her chest. Not enough to suffocate, but enough to hold her still. The room was dark, too dark. Ethan had left a lamp on before she slept. She remembered the warm, amber glow. But now there was nothing. Only the black. Only the shape. A silhouette stood beside her bed. Tall. Wrong. As if its limbs bent at angles that suggested they had once been human, but were no longer arranged in a way that made sense. Claire tried to scream, but the sound caught in her throat like a swallowed stone. The voice came again, but this time it sounded less like a whisper and more like breath sliding past a mouth that did not understand how words were shaped. Come. Home. The air shifted. The pressure lifted. Claire gasped sharply and rolled off the bed, hitting the floor hard enough to send pain shooting up her side. When she scrambled to her feet and searched for the figure, the room was empty. The lamp flickered on. The window curtain swayed. And her suitcase sat open where she had left it zipped shut. Clothes neatly packed, now unfolded, arranged, laid out on the bed, as though something had been preparing her to leave. Claire ran. She didn't think. Her body moved before her mind understood. She burst into Ethan's room, shaking, breathless. He woke instantly, his instincts sharpened by years of living alone in silence. When he saw her expression, he didn't hesitate. It came here. She choked. Ethan only nodded. It will not stop now. She looked at him, tears pushing past her composure. What does it want? Ethan reached for his coat. The house is not just a place. It's a door. And when you stepped inside, it recognized you. Claire felt her skin crawl. Recognized me? There are places in this world that remember people, Ethan murmured. And there are places that decide who belongs to them. Claire shook her head. No, I don't belong to it. I don't. Ethan didn't answer. Not because he agreed, but because he knew some truths are crueler when spoken aloud. Morning came gray and thin. Ethan insisted they go into town. Talk to someone who might know more than he did. The person lived on the far end of the village, in a small stone cottage nearly swallowed by ivy. Her name was Morag, An elderly woman with pale eyes that seemed to look through, rather than at. When Ethan told her what had happened, before Claire could even speak, Morag raised a hand to silence him. "The house has woken," she said softly, "and it has chosen its keeper." Claire stepped back. "Keeper?" Morag nodded. "Not prey, not sacrifice. Keeper. The house does not want you dead. It wants you with it. It wants you to stay. Forever." Claire shook her head, voice sharp. "No, I'm leaving. I'll burn the house to the ground if I have to." Morag's expression didn't change. Fire will not kill what was never alive. Claire felt her breath catch. "So what do I do?" Morag studied her with something like pity. "The house took the mother first. Because she listened. Because she heard it. But you..." Morag paused, eyes narrowing slightly. "You did not hear it. The house came to you anyway." Claire swallowed. "What does that mean?" Morag's voice dropped to a whisper. "It means the house does not want your obedience. It wants your fear." Claire felt the room tilt. Her knees weakened. Ethan steadied her. Morag continued. "You must not run. If you run, it will follow. If you hide, it will come. If you refuse it, it will take something from you to make you return." Claire's voice shook. "Take what?" Morag looked at her, then at Ethan, then back to Claire. "Whatever you love most." The words hung in the air like rot. Claire turned to Ethan, panic blooming wide in her chest. "I need to leave this place. Now." But Ethan did not move. He stared out the window, and Claire followed his gaze. The village was still, silent, and down the road, near the old trees, something stood. A dark figure, facing them, not moving, not walking, simply waiting. Claire whispered, "It followed us." Ethan's voice was barely air. "It knows you're trying to escape." That night, they made the decision no one wanted to voice. They would go back to the house, not to stay, but to confront. The drive was silent, the sky bruised purple behind clouds that moved without wind. The house stood in the clearing, exactly as it always had. But something was different. The windows looked like open eyes, watching, expectant. Claire stepped out of the car. The air around her felt thick, heavy, humming with something that was both inside her and outside her at once. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're not alone," he said, and she believed him, until the front door opened on its own. No wind, no touch, just invitation. Claire walked in. The house welcomed her. The floorboards exhaled beneath her feet. The walls sighed. And from somewhere deep within its dark ribs, the voice spoke again, not whispered, not distant, but inside her ear, as close as breath. "Stay." The sound of that single word echoed through her bones. She didn't answer it, not out of strength, but because her voice no longer felt like it belonged to her. Claire moved deeper into the house, each step sounding too loud, as though she were walking inside the hollow chest cavity of some enormous creature. The walls didn't look the same. The wallpaper she remembered, faded rose patterns peeling at the edges, now looked damp, like it was sweating. Dark streaks swept down toward the floor, thick as tar. The air was warmer here, warmer than a house should be, warmer than a house could be. Ethan followed behind her, but even his presence felt distant. The house didn't care that he was there. It didn't want him. It wanted her. Claire stopped in the middle of the hallway. She didn't know why, but something beneath her feet, beneath the floor, shifted, just slightly, as if something down there had moved. Something large. Ethan placed his hand lightly on her back. "Claire, don't go further." But the house was already leading her. She didn't need to decide. She didn't need to walk. She was moving because the house wanted her to move. The stairs groaned as she ascended, and with each step the air grew heavier. She could taste something metallic on her tongue, like old blood. The second floor hallway stretched longer than she remembered, as though the house had grown in the night, expanding its shape to contain something unwelcome. The door to the master bedroom was open. A faint glow flickered inside, not warm like candlelight, but a weak, grayish shimmer like moonlight reflecting off wet stone. Claire stepped inside. The room was mostly unchanged, except for the mirror. She had seen that mirror before, a tall, antique thing with an ornate frame of twisting oak leaves. It had always made her uneasy, but now its glass shimmered like water, rippling, distorted. She approached slowly. Her reflection looked back at her, but not correctly. It was her face, but the eyes were wrong. The eyes were not hers. They were older, darker, sadder, and behind her reflection, standing just over her shoulder, was another figure. Claire turned. No one was there, but in the mirror, the figure remained. A woman, hair tangled, dress faded, skin pale as molded parchment. Claire knew her, even without knowing how. The mother, the one who had lived in this house before, the mother who had been taken. The reflection woman lifted her hand, slowly, like she was underwater. Claire watched, unable to move, as the hand pressed against the inside of the mirror. The glass bowed outward, bulging like stretched skin. The woman's fingers pushed through. The surface of the mirror parted like a membrane. A cold, wet hand broke into the room. Claire stumbled backward, but there was nowhere to go. The door behind her had quietly closed. Ethan pounded on it from the other side, shouting her name, but his voice sounded muffled, far away, as though they were now in different worlds. The woman stepped out of the mirror. Her movements were deliberate, slow, restrained. Not violent, not savage, but tired, desperately tired. She looked at Claire with hollow eyes, and when she spoke, her voice was like air sliding through rotted wood. "He won't let us leave." Claire's breath trembled. "Who?" The woman did not blink, did not sway, did not soften. "The house." Claire felt tears burning her eyes. "How do I stop it?" The woman leaned closer. Her face was inches away now. Claire could see the cracks in her skin, the dried salt tracks of old tears, the despair that had soaked into her soul. "You don't stop it," the woman whispered. "You take our place." The room shook. The floorboards groaned like something beneath them was waking. Something old, something angry, something that had waited too long. The house did not want her fear anymore. It wanted her presence, her permanence, her surrender. Ethan's voice broke through now, louder, desperate. "Claire! Claire!" The door burst open. Ethan rushed inside. The mirror woman turned her head slowly toward him. He froze instantly, as if a hand had closed around his spine. Claire tried to reach for him, but her hands felt heavy, weighted. The woman lifted her hand again and pointed at Ethan, not threateningly, almost gently, as though naming something inevitable. "He will leave," the woman whispered. "You will stay." Claire, with the last strength she had, shook her head. "No, I won't." And then the floor beneath her split, not with violence, not with sound, silently, like wood dissolving into darkness. Claire fell, not down but inward, into the house, into its hollow spaces, into the place where voices echo but mouths do not open. She felt the darkness wrap around her like water. The house spoke again, not with words but with certainty. "You are home." Ethan screamed her name. But the house closed, the floor sealed, the mirror went still, and the room was silent. Ethan dropped to his knees. He stayed in that house for hours, calling for her, searching every room, every hidden corner. But she was gone. Not dead, not missing, just gone. And the house was quiet, calm, content. Ethan left that night. He never spoke of Claire again. But sometimes, on cold, still nights, the villagers say they see a woman standing in the window of that house, watching, waiting, not for rescue, but for the next one the house will choose. Do you think Claire was chosen, or simply in the wrong place at the wrong time? And tell me, if a place called to you, not with words, but with recognition, would you go? Or would you run? Let me know what you think in the comments, and make sure you like this video. It helps more than you know. And subscribe, because there are many more stories waiting. Some forgotten, some hidden, some still happening right now, in houses just like the one you're sitting in. Thank you for staying with me. Until next time, don't turn the lights off just yet.